Hey everyone, welcome back for another episode of I Would Like to Have a Conversation. Ruby, you want to say hey? Theo, do you want to say hey?
Hello.
This week, Todd's actually interviewing me on my journey from when I was your age to where I am now, which is really cool, isn't it? Now, Theo, 3, 2, 1, reveal! Superman! How cool is that? I'd say thanks everybody, talk to you later. Bye!
Froze there for the. All right, we are back with episode 4. All right.
Yes.
I just want to take the time to thank you for allowing me to have space last week to share my story and share more about that. What I realized after sharing it, and the more that I share it, I'm able to unpack more and more for myself. So I appreciate you holding space for me, and the last week has been really interesting since, telling my story and knowing that more people were going to see it, unpacking that more and more for myself has been a really cool journey. But the last week has been great. So I wanted to thank you for that. And, episode 4 is going to be about Chris Forrest and, who is Chris Forrest? And I know, I just wanted to say that you've been a big inspiration for me in unpacking this stuff and understanding who I am. And I know that we've been engaged since, or have conversations and been engaged since last October, November. But yeah. I'm excited about this podcast because I'm going to learn a heck of a lot more about who you are and your story. So let's jump right in, man. Let's talk to me and tell me who Chris Forrest is.
So I'll go back to when I was a kid, and the one thing I was like, everyone kind of told me was I was just quiet, did my thing, but being respectful to the people in my family and everything. I won't go too much into what childhood was like. I'll sort of lead into the idea of like I just escaped and just went outside, and soccer was my thing back in the day when it was like one sport a year. Now it feels like kids just like do everything, but yeah, I was like soccer and that was it. And then so literally if there was daylight, I was out playing soccer in the backyard. We were very lucky, we had a huge backyard, and I would escape and do that a lot as my way of leveling out. And it was my way to get out frustration or whatever. My parents separated and we moved away. We moved to Wollongong, and soccer was still the thing. I bounced around clubs and stuff, and we bounced around houses a lot. Like we moved to the coast in Wollongong, which is just south of Sydney. We moved there in 95, and then I think from 95 to 2000, we moved 7 times, maybe even more than that. So then there was like moving between towns. So there's lots of little towns up and down the coast, and we hopped and moved around between towns. But I loved it there. It was so good. So I had soccer and I had the beach. And that was like the two things I loved in my life was like, I could just go do that stuff. I was very socially shy. I was going to say not awkward, but not really. I'm just shy. I was a cave dweller. I just like being by myself. The super introverted. And like I had friends, but not a big crew of friends. And it was never like that. It's funny. It was never that real big connection points. Like I didn't have really, 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 really close friends. There was a few which I would go and hang out at their house and stuff like that. But it was no like I'll call it like kids like the Stand By Me friends. Like they really cool, tight knit group, the Goonies crew. Like didn't have that for whatever reason. I didn't really look into it that much back then. But then come 2000, we moved to Albury, which is where I am now, and I did not want to go. It was literally played out like this. Can you imagine this is like a 16-year-old? For Christmas, you get your first bodyboard or boogie board, whatever. And it's like this is going to be it. Got flippers. This is going to be amazing. 4 weeks later, we find out we're moving into the central inland Australia. And to me, and it was like moving to this town, Aubrey, and I thought Aubrey was like way out in the sticks in the desert. There would be tumbleweeds going by. It's just not really like that. But that's where we got picked up and taken with mum because she got work back in the teaching world. And so we moved to Aubrey. And this is kind of where things started to fall apart. I started turning into a bit of a shit kid. Not like, it's interesting in the sense where I didn't really have those connection points, but I started, like I had a girlfriend when we left Gerringong, and I just had to snap it off. Like she wanted to do a long distance relationship, and I was like, I don't know when I'm ever going to be back, so we cut it off. Like this is like I was 15, so it is what it is. But there was that, and most of my close friends were females over there, and then it was just like gone. Everything just shut off. And I remember just before we moved is when I had the first thought of just I don't want to deal with this shit anymore. And I was sitting on the headland because there's like the cemetery, and it's where my nan and pop and a few other of our family members are buried. The cemetery is right on the headland, and I was just sitting on the headland, and I was like, I could just go and just pop off. I remember that was the first thought I ever had of just like, I can't be fucked with this shit anymore. And I didn't do it for whatever reason. It was just the thought, like sometimes the passing thought, and sort of left that, and we moved to Aubrey, and then things would like spiraled around. Went to a school where like we started 4 weeks into the year, so it was already 4 weeks into year 11, and everything like from the school I was previously at, where I was doing IT, it was Windows at the old school, it was Macs at the new school, so everything was just like a big shift, and I ended up started wagging and not showing up. I'd go in for roll call and just literally walk out the door and say goodbye to the teachers as I walk past, and they'd just let you go. It was just so bizarre. And started wagging, eventually got caught, left school halfway through 11, went to TAFE to do IT. Wasn't my jam. So I started working at Hungry Jack's. And it was like, that was the thing. My dad come up and was like, if you want to do something, you got to work Hungry Jack's. But this is a long
for a moment.
And
For the listeners, can you describe wagging?
Wagging. So it's like wagging is like you're walking out on school. So I would pretend I was going to school, but then I would just go watch a movie instead. And like the teachers would see me down the street, and I just wave like, "Hey, Chris." It was weird. Like I would always think that the teachers would just grab me by my ear and drag me back, but they were just like, "Hey, no worries." Super odd. Anyway, so I left school mid-year 11, went to TAFE, didn't really work at TAFE, started working Hungry Jack's, and got into a relationship at Hungry Jack's. I was in this relationship for 3 years. But it was in that moment where I had a big disagreement with my mum. And from that disagreement, I walked out and just love tapped a window, and my whole hand went through the window and glass went all through my hand and stuff. And that was when I left home. So it was like 16, 17. I moved out, which is fair enough. Like I snapped a window. Mum and I weren't getting along. Needed to fly the coop pretty much. So I went and moved in with my girlfriend at the time. She was older than me. She was a manager at Hungry Jack's. I was a crew member. We had to make a decision. One of us had to leave. The boss was like, you can't be in a relationship inside the workplace. So I stepped out and got a job at a steel shop. So going like fast forwarding through all that kind of stuff, it was 3 years. I didn't really drink anything. I didn't drink at all because I was in a relationship. I didn't feel like the need to. I had little bits and pieces before with my cousins at parties, with all the cousins getting together, like West Coast Coolers, which is like a sugary, winey kind of chaser. It's weird. And didn't really do anything there. But then the relationship I got in it just sort of fell apart in the end. And then I That was just before I turned 21. And then I went super hard into drinking, very, very hard, even to the point like the house I was in, it was just a party house, as it is. Like, it's that age group that I didn't have an off switch. I just kept going and going, and I'll get to that happy spot, which is where I wanted to be, because it would quiet everything down in my head about what would be coming up. But then I'll just keep going because I would drink so fast. If it was in my hand, I'd have to finish it, and then I'd have another one in my hand, and that was kind of how it went. It went on like that for a while. Then I got another partner, and was with Whitney. She was like with her for like 3 years, 3.5 years, and I stopped drinking again because there's like that connection point happened. But the problem was that looking back on it, we both couldn't stand by ourselves, really. We lent on each other too much. So it caused a lot of pressure. So I started drinking again while we were together. And this is why I was working in a steel shop, and I wasn't really fulfilled working there, but I didn't know it. I was just using it to get money, but I didn't really like what I was doing. All these things were happening internally that I couldn't process because I was pushing it down with alcohol, and then the spirals would keep happening. So it kind of started where I was just going out on the weekends and drinking quite a bit. Like, I fell into a good group of mates who did look after me, and they're still my good close mates now, and we all lived together. And we would, on Friday, we would get 2 slabs each, and by Monday it was gone. So it's like 24, 48 drinks each. And we would spend tons of money going out. So it was just lots. I didn't fall into anything else but alcohol, luckily, because if I did, I would have been roasted. But it sort of just kept escalating. So I was with this crew of mates. The relationship with Whitney was getting very volatile, where she could see I was having a problem. She would ask me to stop drinking, and I would do the fuck you thing. You can't tell me what to do. Go. Just kept going. And it just got very bad, to the point where I could be walking home with my mates from down the street, and I'll be on the phone leaving abusive messages to her. It was looking back on it, at the time, I didn't see how bad it was, but I was an asshole, lack of a better word. I've made peace with it now, and sort of not forgiven, let go of the shit I did, because it was someone who just didn't know how to handle his stuff. Not saying it was okay. It's never okay. No abuse is okay, but I was in a really bad spot. And it was at this stage, I was running the warehouse where I was working in the steel shop, and there was a couple of pivotal moments. Drinking started bleeding into the middle of the week, where I would try and I would create reasons to be able to drink more. And there was moments where I had a house too. I bought a house under the influence of alcohol. I was half drunk, half hungover, put in offers to buy a house where I know I definitely shouldn't have done it, but it was what I should have done. I should be doing. I should be getting a house. And I bought a house, and I had no right to do it. And in that time, I did really well for a while paying it off, but then after a while, my drinking got so bad, I stopped paying off the house and was just drinking instead. And I was drawing back on the house loan to get more money for alcohol. And this is where my friends didn't really understand. They're like, I'm jumping around a bit, but when I just come out and said, I'm an alcoholic, they're like, yeah, you only do it on the weekends. It's more like binge drinking. And then they couldn't really comprehend it. And I was like, no, I'm literally stealing money from my house loan to pay for alcohol. That is the sign of an alcoholic. I did not know how to stop it. So all in that, it kind of kept festering up and festering up. There was moments where I'd come home and wake up on the middle of the floor in the lounge room, and someone's knocking on the door. I open the door, and it's my boss from work with the receptionist coming around to see if I'm still alive. It got to the point where they were that worried about me, and it still didn't really click. Like, it was weird. Like, I know there's always like you got to hit rock bottom for it to make it happen, and it was. I can remember it exactly. And there's photos of the last day I was drinking. So it was me with a sailor's cap on, sitting behind a big bottle of wine. And I remember it because I drank 3 bottles of wine that night, and this like Moscato, like this really, like, I can't remember what it's called. It's very, very, very rich, strong wine as well. And I was sick as a dog on my soccer coach's floor, because it was at the soccer coach's house. And I woke up that morning very, very drunk and drove in the town, which is like a 30-minute drive. I don't remember the drive getting there. Come in, you could smell it on me. I hadn't had a shower yet. You smell it all over me. And the boss took me. He was kind of like a second dad to me. He took me into his office and was like, "I can't keep covering your ass. You're fired if you can't get yourself straight." And I walked out the back and rung Beyond Blue, which is an Australian, it's kind of like Lifeline, it's a helpline, and talked to them and worked through it. And that was the last, I believe, my memory is kind of murky, but that was the last time I drank. Beyond Blue told me to go to the doctor. Went to the doctor. I refused to go on antidepressants because I had very high depression. But my old man has gone through depression. He went on Prozac, which is the one they recommended, and I just saw what it did, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to figure it out. It was kind of like, and it was weird. It was kind of like a self-punishment. I will figure this out. I have to feel the hurt because I won't go into that shit scenario again. So I went into this thing of like, I've got to work through it, make it, and I made the path kind of hard coming out of it to teach myself a lesson, if that makes sense. And yeah, so I went to the doctor, got the mental health plan, got very lucky. I got a no BS psychologist. She was like the psychologist who assessed the police to go into like Australia's version of SWAT. So she was like very much like, she just come out of the police, like force doing their psychology. It's like very much like no BS kind of approach, which was perfect for what I needed.
Before we jump into that, there's a couple things. One I want to get to, and we can maybe hit. You said early on, like, soccer was like an escape for things that were building up in your head, and it seemed like when later on in life, like when things did this as well. Was this like a pattern you saw in your life? Did you just not know how to like deal with the emotions or process those things? And the second part of that question is along those same lines, like at that moment when your boss did that, and maybe there was a culmination of things that helped you reach out and get help. What changed in regards to you, like, kind of suppressing all this stuff most of your life or not dealing with it versus becoming so clear about you having to, or realizing that you wanted to work through this and taking it upon yourself to do that? Like, what switched in so let's go back to the first question in regards to, like, was this a pattern? And then down the road, what was that like thing where I need to work through this? Because I think there's a lot of people that are going to rely on psychologists and therapists, and I think, and I think it's sometimes, even myself, it's like, I want you to fix me, or I want you to do this. What was that switch that was like, no, I realize this is something that the only way through is if I focus on that? So that's a 2-part question there.
Yeah. I think like, to be fair, like, my boss was Neil Gush, and he had my back so much for so many things. and supported me through so many tough things as well, breakups, all that kind of stuff. I think I went through 3 relationships while I was working with him. And he was just like, he's one of those good bosses that was just always there for his crew. And when he sat me down and said that to me, he hadn't said that before over like the 10 years previous almost. And it was, even though other people have said it, like I was in that relationship. By this time, I wasn't in a relationship, so I was going pretty hard into the alcohol because there was no one else there I had to worry about. It was just me. And when he sat me down, it was that circuit breaker. It's like that snap. It was like, holy shit. And then it was like all of a sudden I realized how much I was pushing down the problems and how much the problems were starting to stack up. So that was the thing. And I think it was because that last day I drank 3 bottles of wine, and my mates told me that it was like within an hour. Like they said that you had a class, but you might as well not bothered. So it was clear that I was just wanting to hurt myself, and I was doing it through alcohol because I just didn't want to deal with whatever was going on. And so once I started going through therapy, she wanted the idea of like teaching me how to manage it. And we dabbled around with that idea. And then I was just like, look, it's easier. I'm going to be a knower. Like, can't have it. That's it. And that's when the therapy started working. Like, we started working on the things to move away from it rather than trying to figure out how we can have it in my life, the alcohol. It made it so much easier to start unpacking stuff and just finding out the triggers. So one of the best thing for me, and I think of that app, like if this, then that, it was literally like a little card I had in my wallet. So anything that would create my triggers that made me start wanting to think about drinking again to try and quieten it down, I would sneak off into the toilet. And my mates didn't know this for ages. I used to do this. Like, I still went out with them. I swapped alcohol for energy drinks so I could have that buzz and be around them and dance and all that kind of stuff, because I was still a single dude, still wanting to do all that stuff. And I had this trigger card. So if the triggers popped up, the certain triggers I had, which I won't share only because of respect to other people, but the trigger card was in, like, I would go read the trigger. If I'm feeling this, think this instead. So it was just rewiring my brain, which is so much of what I do now with people. Just changing the story, and instead of like catastrophic thinking, is like moving it to a much better place. So if I start feeling triggered, I would sneak off to the toilet, read the card, and come back. And this is where the addictive personality thing kind of came from. When I switched to energy drinks, I started relying on energy drinks to keep myself going on the party lifestyle, because it was definitely not natural being out till 4 o'clock in the morning without alcohol. And then it was definitely not natural to do it without energy drinks to try and stay awake. So I did fall into another addiction. Admittedly, it wasn't as destructive on other people as what alcohol was, but yeah. And then, so everything started to come together, and I started noticing I didn't need the trigger card as much. Like, at first it was like every day, multiple times a day, and it started spreading out. So things were getting better, which was really cool. And then that's when things started, it's like a fog lifted. I started noticing things like, yes, the debt I created with the house was burning down. It was huge. And I went to debt consultants and we wrapped it all up in a bundle. And my thing was like, I will pay it off. I just need to get people to stop calling me so I could start moving forward. And they did a really good job. That went on for ages. Even went on when I still met Kat, which will come up soon. But yeah, I was working at Midway Metals, and because the fog got lifted, I was being more productive, obviously more productive at work. And I moved into sales. And then in the sales role, I just felt empty, and the thoughts and stuff started coming up again. And then it was like off the cuff. It was very, very weird. The receptionist is like, oh, I'm going to do this PT course. By this stage, my big thing I got back into was training a lot. I started getting very, very fit. I wanted to play seniors at the club I was playing at for ages, but because I was an alcoholic, I didn't really get in there. I wasn't fit enough. And I started getting really fit and I got into the senior team. So fitness became my thing. It was my crutch. It was like the thing that was allowed me to unpack all my stuff and release that tension. And then
I'm curious real quick, what the emptiness with the sales? What do you think drove that?
I don't, because it was a weird role. It wasn't like sales as we know it, where it's like it's a deep conversation, talking with people, asking what they need. It was this order taking. It wasn't even really sales. I was called a sales manager, and this is aging myself. And the orders would come through via fax. I'd take it off, give them a call, punch it in, send it off. Like I spent more time playing solitaire on the computer than I did doing any sales. So it was just like it was boredom, really. I felt like the King's Crew. I felt like I had more to give, but I didn't know what it was. So went through that. The receptionist come up and she goes, "Oh, I'm doing this PT course, personal training course, and I can invite someone in and they get it, and I get half price. Like, do you want to do it? You're fit." And I'm like, and it was like off the cuff. I was like, "Oh yeah, why not?" I was like, "I just want something to do." Like, cool, let's do it. And went through the course. The course was horrendous. Like, it was the worst. I don't even know how I became a PT out of it. I think out of my group, I'm the only one that still does any kind of coaching, because that's how bad the course was. We had 5 different teachers. It was a mess. But I just really enjoy the process of learning those things. I was learning it anyway for myself, but doing that stuff. And then I got it. Didn't really do anything for about a year because I was like, that course was shit. I need to learn more. So I went down this massive study train. So while I was doing sales, I used to have stacks of books on my desk. Do sales, just read the books on personal training, nutrition, all that kind of stuff. And I just did that for ages. The boss didn't care because like the job was getting done. And then it was either that or play solitaire. And it would look better if someone walked in when I was reading a book rather than playing solitaire. So went through all that and then started coaching people in mobile PT outside of work. And that all sort of started happening really well. Started getting a few connections and people started seeing that I was being PT or was going around coaching footy teams for pre-season training, things like that. I had a really good group of people in a town that was about not an hour, probably 45 minutes away. I used to have like 20 women. I would train at their footy ground, and that went on for a long time. My auntie actually helped start it, and it was like small town community. Everyone knew each other. Everyone knew what socks they wore. Like, it was that kind of feel. And then there was a 24-hour gym opening up, and they offered me the gig. And I was 9.5 years into my job at the steel shop. Long service comes at 10. And I sat down with my boss. It's like, I got this offer to be a PT in a 24-hour gym. I really, really want to do it. What's the go with long service? Like, I'll probably need that to support me. And it was said to me that it's prorated. So you'll still get it. You'll get prorated 9.5 years. But he goes, I'll go double check. Nothing was said. I took his word for it. Put in my resignation. Went to and said I was going to start at the gym. On the last day, I got a letter telling me that I lost my long service. I wasn't going to get it. And sadly, it's kind of like the last time we've ever really had a good conversation, because it was just like a break of trust. And I get why they did it. Like, they saved money. That's fine. It was my decision. I could have just waited 6 months. And it turns out I should have, because when I left, the 24-hour gym had a delay in getting finished. And then when I went to this 24-hour gym, I wasn't going in to be a PT, as it turns out. I was going in to be a cleaner and a salesperson. And I only lasted a month and a half.
Can you again for what is long service?
So in Australia, if you stay at a company for 10 years, you get like 8 weeks of leave just added to your annual
Okay.
leave. And you can use it however way you like. You can use it one big lump or whatever. And then you get another, I think you get another bit of 15 years, another bit of 20 years. Like in Australia, like especially now with the amount of people that change jobs and stuff, it's very rare to get it. But Kat's got it. So I've never had it. But Kat's got long service leave that she can use whenever she wants to use it. The So it's a big thing. Like a lot of people will just stay in a job they hate just to get the long service leave. And like I've gone through it. I was like, I didn't want to be there anyway. Like, yes, the money would have been amazing. It would have been 6 months worth of work, but this opportunity came and I took it. And even though it was shit at the time because I got stitched up both ways, I ended up just doing mobile PT and driving around to the satellite towns around our town who don't have PTs, and I'll just go do group classes there. And it was kind of fun for a while until the driving just got really taxing. I was still addicted to, not addicted, but I was still burning the candle at both ends. Sort of single and playing soccer, training really hard, driving everywhere. I was driving to my uncle's house, which is the uncle to my auntie couple, and I was training him one-on-one in this farm. And I was driving out there one morning, and I had a pre-workout to wake myself up to drive out there. For anyone who doesn't know, pre-workout's just got caffeine in it. It's kind of like a Red Bull, but it's powder. I fell asleep in the car and spun out on the road and just missed a tree. And I was exhausted. I just fell into a heap. Went to the hospital, and my heart was like, not like the good HRV, like sporadic beats where it's like uneven. It was just like super consistent. They're like, you're a little bit cooked. You're a little bit stressed out. And I still had the massive debt from drinking sitting there. So I was still paying that off, trying to make the PT business work, and just trying to just go, and just fell into a heap. And that's when I fell into studying HRV, stress, and starting to manage my training better. It still took me a long time to figure it out. I'm still have that personality of just go. And we've talked about it personally heaps, where I'm just like this whole mantra I've got: flow versus force, letting go. What does it look like if it was fun? There's like these three things I have to just keep ramming in my head to slow me down and just let things happen instead of forcing it. So I did that spin out, and I was like, I need to make a change. And by this time, I did meet Kat. So the way I met Kat was I was training her sister. And her sister started falling in love with personal training and stuff like that. And then she wanted to become a coach. So I helped her through the coaching course. And it was like, it was this sort of this interesting thing where the town that she lived in, I thought that she was having an affair with me because I was there helping her through her course. And like all this stuff happened. And anyway, it was her 30th birthday. And she's like, told Kat, come down. She was coming to her 30th birthday anyway. And I was going as well. She's like, go, just hook up with Chris and just shut the town people up. And Kat's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. It's just weird. And then rock up to the 30th and we start chatting and we connected really well and just chatted heaps. We didn't hook up that day, but we chatted heaps. And then with the next weekend, I drove down and met her down in Melbourne and just hung out with her. And then we started dating the week later. And we did the travel thing backwards and forth, which I actually really enjoyed. It's like 3-4 hours. I would finish coaching people on the Friday, get in the car, drive down to Melbourne, hang out with her all Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, get back in the car very, very early Monday. This is the whole early wake up thing. I'd wake up at like 2 a.m. just so I could spend another night there, get in the car, drive back and train people at 6 a.m. back in town. And it was like a 3-4 hour drive back. And that went on for 6 months, and she would do the same. She would come up because her family lived here, so she didn't mind coming back up anyway. And then eventually, it was funny. It was in the wedding vows. She left Middle Park, which is like a very, very nice suburb of Melbourne, on the water, big houses. She had a job in the art museum. She left that to come back to a house that had no grass, a dog that chased crickets, and this tin box little shithole in Albury. It was so funny. It was literally in the wedding vows. Like she left that to come live up here in this really shit house. Anyway, but yeah, so she moved back and moved in with me, and we stayed in this house for a while, and then I come home one day and there was a letter on the door. It was an eviction notice, and the bank just finally had enough, which is fair enough. It went on for a while. It was weird. I was excited that I got evicted. Yes, it was incredibly bad for my credit score and all that stuff. But it was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. Like, yeah, I didn't want to be there. I was just there because it was in my name and I was forcing myself to figure it out. And in that stage, like, we were planning on trying to sell it. Like, we were working on, like, if we could just sell it and just get rid of the debt, that's cool. So we just got the bathroom renovated. And then, yeah, I come home. It was like a week later and there was an eviction notice on the door. And I was like, yeah, it felt okay. And like Kat and I talked about it and we were like, yeah, it's bad, but it's good. Like go just take it. So we had to leave. And because my credit score was shite, we had to find a house that we could rent. And luckily, Kat had a really good boss whose sister was renting out a house and we were able to move into something. And this is like all through the stage. So it was like super crazy. Eviction notice, moving to the new house, engagement, started another gym. Like I've built a gym, which we'll go into in a minute. And we got married in like a 18-month window. It was pretty nuts. But during that time of the whole house thing, I started a gym called Cross Border Fitness, and it was on the other side of the water in Victoria. And it grew really well. I got a good mentor, who's a local guy, Bo Zolko. He helped me build it up. And we went from like 10 people when I started, which was all friends. And at one stage, we got up to 150 people. It was kind of like CrossFit, but not CrossFit. And people loved it. It was really, really, like, it was great. I just go. I burnt out running the gym. Any gym owner that's listening knows exactly what I'm talking about, what it's like trying to open a gym. You know what I'm talking about, having a chiropractic. Like, running a business is hard. And then being the only person in this business, I burnt out. Like, we got through, it was weird. It was like a 6-month period and it got really, really big and really, really busy. And then I was mates with a guy who had another gym in Albury and he had the same issue. So we sat down and talked about it, like, why don't we just, let's join him. Let's merge. He's a boxing coach. I'm a fitness coach. On paper, it made sense. He had a really good location right in the center of Albury. He had a massive reputation. I was like, this is just going to be, it's all win. So I made the announcement. This is like small town Australia, unfortunately. It was Wodonga. The new gym was going to be in Albury. I reckon we lost 80% of the people coming over. But he had a massive client base. So I was like, not too stressed by it. And it was going to save time, all that kind of stuff. The reality was something totally different. Again, out of respect to him, I won't go into as much as what I probably should. But it all blew up in 3 months. Lots of hours, lots of sketchy dealings. We just felt like the relationship broke. And it was I remember it was like one Friday night, we had a disagreement in front of everybody in in the training session, and he just walked off. I had to finish the class, and I'm not a boxing coach, but I had to sort of finish off the class for it. And then that was it for me. I rung some mates. We packed all of my shit up, took it out, threw the keys in there, and walked off. I was like, I'm done. And this was a month before our wedding.
Oof.
Kat was really good with it. Like, she's always really good with it. To be fair,
I was gonna say I'm curious, and maybe the listeners are about. I kind of skimmed over the process of her moving out of this.
Yeah,
is what you described this the scenario she was in to follow this your handsome devil self to this to this house that had I'm curious, like, what I know we're going back a little ways, and I should have
that's all right.
asked this question, but I'm curious, like, I mean, was that really, like, was there a big talk around that? Like, because you kind of seemed like you skimmed over it, she was cool, or like, how big of a decision was that for her, and and moving out there?
I think she definitely wanted to be back with family, so it was a big win-win, because I was talking about I could go down there. But yeah, she definitely just wanted I think she just really wanted to get out of Melbourne, get out of the city life, get back to her family. She's super connected with her family, which is really cool. It's like, we talk about our tribes and stuff. It's like, that's her tribe. They can unpack on each other. They can read each other. It works really well.
That's awesome.
It's pretty much why I've stayed here for so long, because I would be back at the coast if I could. But I know that Kat's tribe is here. So we just make it work. But yeah, so she did willingly move back to here. She and into the scenario that it was, being the past alcoholic, massive debt. She walked into it all knowing this stuff, because I was very transparent and open about the whole way. There was so the one thing that was so good about therapy is that therapy I went through is that I'm like literally an open book, and I will share it with everybody, to the detriment sometimes, because it makes people feel uncomfortable. But yeah, she was all in regardless, which was really cool. And then even like when you go.
It takes like that. How long did you guys know each other at this time? By this time?
It's pretty funny. Like, when she decided to move back, it was like 6 months.
So that takes a lot of, like, the type of relationship that you can build in 6 months for that to occur. And I'm also taking into consideration sometimes people make these decisions like on whims, and but like, I also think that there's a massive amount of trust built up, and a deep connection in these 6 months for that to occur. And maybe not on this podcast, but another time, I think that's really cool. And just from off our conversations off camera, if you will, you've talked about how you guys have developed that, and I think that's really cool, and something that we can maybe hit on later on. But I just wanted to Kat sounds like the superstar of this latter part of this story here, right?
I said the same thing. So the Kat, like, you have to come on after I do this one. She's like, why? I'm like, people are going to be like, what the fuck? What? So they'll need to understand. Yeah, like, understand the reasoning. And she's like, there is no reasoning. So yeah, we ended up. So it was the best thing I did. I shut the gym, or not shut the gym. I walked away from it, and I haven't talked to this guy since. That's how volatile it got, and I just sat and did nothing for like a month into the wedding, so I could just help with the wedding and focus and actually enjoy the wedding, because I wasn't even thinking about it. I knew it was coming, but there was so much stress I couldn't even comprehend it. So Kat literally took the reins for the whole thing, and we got married, and it was amazing. It was the best wedding, as everyone says. Like, I didn't get to eat any of the food, which is pretty much what everyone says, so because you're always out talking to people. It was a good sort of flip to get me into this new world with Kat. And then I still didn't really know what I was doing, and she helped me create the CJ rubric, which is an online coaching business that I started. And we thought it'd be really clever calling it the CJ rubric. My name is Christopher James Forrest, so CJ, and rubric being that teaching tool where you can self-assess yourself and figure out your gaps and da-da-da. No one knew what it is we were talking about. It was the worst name ever. I had to explain it so much, but I was like, I'm so invested in it, I just kept it anyway. So I started coaching online, and there was a local gym with a guy who taught me kettlebells. I did the kettlebell certs with him. And I really respected the guy. I still do. And he's a legend. But I went to him and told him what I was doing. I was shutting down. I was like, I need to send clients somewhere. The ones that I'm just leaving in the lurch, I would like to send them here. And of course, if you go into someone's business, I'm going to give you my clients. They're like, hell yeah, send them over. Yeah. But he was really supportive and stuff. And he gave me a place to be, not to work or anything yet, because I was going to leave the industry. And he just said, just hang out, just come train, just come hang out and see what happens. And while Kat and I was trying to make babies, trying to make our first baby, I was doing the online thing, and then I was training people in the garage at home, and then I started training, like renting space off him, and started taking his classes for him. And that went on. So that was like 2015. We got married. Theo landed around 2016. Come around 2016, and then I was working with them and online. So I did both, and it worked really well because when Theo came, I became a stay-at-home dad, where I just looked after him a lot. Funnily enough, with both our kids coming, Theo and Ruby, Kat had very short maternity leave. The first one was by design, because she would openly say that she wasn't sure how she was going to be a mum. So we set it up by design that she could go back to work because she loved her work. So we set it up, and I was keen as. I was like, I want to be a dad. I want to be a stay-at-home dad. This is my jam. Let me do it. So we did it. And then the second one was meant to be a little bit longer. Then I stitched her up, and I had to have wisdom teeth taken out. So the money we put aside for her to be able to have longer leave, maternity leave, had to be used for me to go get dental surgery. So she had to go back earlier again. So she missed kind of both, which is a bit sad. But being the stay-at-home dad is where I learned all this stuff on how I coach dads. Because Theo got salmonella when we took him to the Weir. The Weir's like a big lake. He picked up salmonella while he was there and had to stay in hospital overnight. It could have been something very big. But he ended up having the salmonella for like the symptoms from it for like a long period. And it just disrupted his patterns. So for 2 years, he didn't really sleep more like 2 to 4 hours at a time. And it was just like juggling that, trying to get the online thing going, doing classes in the gym. It was just bouncing around between all of that and just figuring things out. Like anyone that just becomes a parent, your world gets completely flipped upside down. Everything you thought you knew, you don't. And all the tools you had beforehand are useless. So you kind of rebuild everything from ground up, which is where all the tools like that 5-minute rule is where I got it from. Because I just had to, for me, learn how to keep my mental health in check, which is my leveler is training. So how do I figure out how to train without burning myself out and being a shit dad? So it was always that balancing act. But yeah, this went on for a couple of years, and then Ruby came along. And Ruby was like total opposite kind of thing. The forgotten child, as I always say, like the second child is the forgotten child. She slept fine because we basically didn't go in there. We learned all the tricks. So finally, it sort of played out really well. Theo loves her and they played really well together. So that was all going really, really good. So we're leading into 2019. We've moved over to Wodonga. I'm still training people, which is on the other side of the Twin Cities. And so it was a bit of a drive to get there. And then the world shut down, 2020. So by this stage, I built up my semi-private training inside my mate's gym. And I had 90 semi-private clients. It was going really well. Like I had a big list of clients and doing that while juggling kids and stuff. And was doing it pretty well. COVID hit. All these rules come into place. You can't have, like, we had a massive warehouse shed. And they're like, you can't have any more than 20 people in a space. And this shed was huge. And we could only have 20 people in there. So I couldn't run my space in there. And we weren't allowed to do anything for 12 weeks anyway, where everything was shut. Everyone remembers COVID. We don't have to go too hard in that. But the coming back from the first shutdown with all the strict rules, I couldn't train in there. And I had another mate that I was training. I used to call him the sugar daddy. He wanted to help me open a gym and he had the finances to help me. He wanted to be the silent partner and I just ran it. And I said, no, don't want to do it. Don't want to do it. COVID hit. Didn't really have a choice. I had to find a space. We found a space. We opened it. Bare bones. It literally was a carpet floor for 2 months. And no one cared because it was semi-private. It was that connection. Everyone loved the semi-private connection, the one-on-one attention in a small group setting, like maybe 6 at a time. And built it up. So that was like October 2020. And we started building it up to July the next year. And we were still juggling the lockdown. So being a twin city, they're on either side of the border. So people who are listening from overseas, it's like New South Wales, Victoria. Victoria have some of the strictest lockdowns in the world. It was like them and Canada were having a game on who could lock down the most. It was bizarre. So, which we all got in the moment, but now we look back, we're like, ugh. But anyway, so Victoria would be locked down, but New South Wales would be open. You couldn't do anything in Victoria. You couldn't even really leave your house. But over in the border, literally 10 minutes away, you could go to the pub, you could go to the shops, you could do anything. 10 minutes apart. Right. It was just it was just a river. So they put a border crossing on there to stop people crossing over to cheat their system. So a 10-minute drive would turn into a 3-hour waiting line to get through to show the papers. So having the gym meant like I would leave at 3 a.m. to skip the line so I could get through quickly and open up. And I would stay there all day. Like some of the best things about gyms is that you have the middle of the day free to go do anything. Because I was from Victoria, we weren't allowed to go around to the shops in New South Wales, but I could go to work. So I just had to sit there all day and I would leave at 3 a.m. and get back at 9 p.m. And it went on for that whole COVID period. So I missed the kids growing up for a long time. I would only see them on the weekends. And by that stage, I was wrecked from trying to keep the gym open around all these rules and regulations we had. Then New South Wales got hit and started closing down. And we got hit for a few lockdowns. So we got to 120 clients. So we did really well during COVID. And I sat down with my business partner and I was like, we need to upgrade our equipment because we've got so many people now. And then we need more robust stuff because stuff is breaking. So we took a whack of the money that we've been making and went and bought tons of equipment. Within 2 weeks, New South Wales shut down. So we went and spent all this money. It was just the worst timing. And then we got shut down for like, I think it was like 10 weeks. It was a while and it hurt.
Yeah.
So I was coaching people online to try and tick things over and it was going all right. But that whole 2021, it was like when that first New South Wales lockdown happened, we went from 120 down to 80. There's like multiple lockdowns, 120 down to 80, down to 60, down to 40 people because people just had enough. And then they brought in this rule, the 70% jab rule, we called it. You had to have 2 jabs to be able to go do anything. And then that got me down to less than 20. I looked at the numbers for us to get back to where we needed to be and to pay my wage and all that kind of stuff, it would almost, because we didn't know the end to what was happening.
Right.
It could be like 5 years to get out of the debt.
Wow.
And we had a little bit of tax debt, and we had some equipment we could sell. I was like, we need to draw a line here. And the business partner and I, we fought a little bit about it. And I was like, to be honest, I can't build it back up again. It literally burnt me out trying to do it. I got to a level where he could have staff and I could manage it. But now we had to get rid of all the staff and just be me again. I can't do it. So we decided to shut it like in October when this 70% jab rule come in, October, November. Literally a month, 4 weeks after we shut it, they took away the jab rule and everything was open. I was like, we messaged me and we saw the news and we were just on the phone looking at each other, just like, you can't even write it.
Yeah.
Like I still believe I wouldn't have done it anyway.
Right.
I'm just missing the kids too much. I didn't realize till I got home. But that's, yeah. And then from that, I went into online coaching only and built the Busy Dad Squad. And that took off like a rocket. But I didn't process the loss of the gym and the amount of effort and the people I felt like I left down. A lot of people come into the online world with me and I coached them online, which was amazing because they allowed me to get through to Christmas and support the kids and have a Christmas and all that kind of stuff. So what's the word I'm looking for? I appreciated that so much because it was such a big stitch up job that whole year. We were open, we were closed, new rules, just rule. You can't talk to me, you can't talk to me, all that kind of stuff. It was just a mess. So I went into online and just went hard because I needed to, because we need to pay off debts and stuff like that. And then went with that for a while, coaching dads on how to get results with stuff all the time. It was this whole 5-minute thing. Like, show me what you're doing, I'll show you how to get results with that. And I got really good at it. But I didn't process what happened. And I kind of went into a cave where I call it the cave because it was depression, but I sort of withdrew and just stayed home. I didn't really go out much. I bought stuff off the gym to train at home, so I didn't have to go anywhere. And I needed it as like a recharge. I wanted to be around the family. I wanted to just build that connection points again. And then, yeah, I was doing the dads for a while. I did a sales job. The guys that helped me grow the gym, they offered me a sales job and I worked for them for like 12 weeks. It was like 14 calls a day kind of thing. It was churn and burn. I just burnt out doing that. Again, I think it was because I hadn't taken care of the grief of shutting the gym and letting people down. And then bits and pieces like that. And then the guy who helped me go online, James, brought me in as a salesperson for him, but way less stress. Like it was maybe 3-4 sales calls a day. That's where I started talking to you about it. And that's how we kind of connected to that. And I kind of enjoyed it because I believed in it. It worked for me. And I still believe in it. It still works for me. And eventually James asked me just to work for him. And I started winding down the dads because, which we'll go into in a minute, is like this thing I created for the dads in my eyes, felt like it did more damage than good. In the sense of, I have this big thing where I want to help parents create space and freedom and capacity to be present with their kids, to be able to do anything they want to do, like the whole say hell yeah to any adventure, and have the wealth and income needed to do all those things. But what I did with the dad squad was I helped them get amazing results with what they were already doing, hoping that they would want to take the next step and chase freedom and adventure. They're like, oh no, I've already got it. I want to stay busy. This is what was going through my head. I'm sure none of them actually said this.
Right.
They were all really appreciative of me showing them how to get results with like very minimal time investment. But in my head, I was like, I think I did a disservice because I didn't show them a path that they could take away from being a busy dad, where it's just survival mode all the time. And then I didn't know it at the time, but that's what it was. And I couldn't figure it out. I had to shut it. I had to close it down to sort of unpack it all. If that makes sense. Sorry, you go.
Yeah. Well, I also thank you for sharing all that. I imagine that part of the frustration, and I'll be I guess candid about where I'm at now and what I'm communicating with you about what I want to do, is possibly because and maybe you were figuring it out at the time, but the frustration with the dads, the busy dads, and getting them results, but not helping them see that freedom that you talk about. Because sometimes it's difficult to, I guess, share something that we haven't completely figured out ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's where I sit with that frustration too, is I haven't completely figured it out, and you're helping me through that. And
Yeah.
um, I I want to go back to, as well as, like, I think as like dads, there's a couple things, there's a theme along there that, like, just going and burning yourself out. And I know that we both, have that personality, and we'll do that
Oh
to
yeah.
no end. But not realizing what we are potentially sacrificing. And during that time, you had mentioned missing out on like the kids growing up and stuff. And it's really interesting how we in this society will do what we feel like we have to do, right? um but sacrifice those things along the way, and then, whether it's months or years later, whenever we decide to kind of clear our head from the fog, this isn't working,
Yeah.
like, this just isn't working. And we'll push ourselves to those edges and consistently, on a daily basis, remind ourselves or tell ourselves that we're doing the right thing. And it maybe was at the time, but I just yeah, wanted to bring that up, and
Yeah.
acknowledge, like, there's a lot of dads out there that are doing, something similar, and may not see a way out, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a long time that that's something that I struggled and suffered with, is like, I couldn't see my way out of where I was. And I just kept repeating the same things over and over again, getting the same result.
Yeah.
And um,
It's
but
it's very interesting because it's literally the last 18. Well, I keep saying 18 months. It's probably not 18 months. It's like a year to a bit when I shut the dads down and just worked with James only. And I withdrew from social media. I had to go into my cave to try and figure out what it is that I wanted. So in that bumpers book, well, I say this to everybody, is like, what are we optimizing for? And is it a race you actually want to be in? Well, I was chasing money, but for what? And then the whole last year is me working through figuring out what it is that I actually really enjoy doing, which is where this podcast comes from, like having good conversations, helping people solve problems. But I had to go through a filter, and the filter was like the top of the filter was family. So I had to just, well, what does that mean? And read tons of books. Like, I did so much learning. It was insane. Not insane, but I did a lot. Like, I've read so many books last year. And one of the things is like the perfect average day, Craig thing. What is your perfect average day? And I put that in place, and I was like, cool, this is what my perfect average day is. I wake up 4 a.m., do coaching calls and connections, and like just help people solve their problems and let them create a space for them to solve their own problems. And then dad mode, go into dad mode, get the kids ready for school and take them to school. And then come back, train, seek my adventure. And then fluff around with admin, 2 o'clock, knock off, dad mode for the rest of the afternoon. That is literally my perfect average day. If I could create that and create income to support that, I would be the happiest man. So started putting that in place, everything except obviously the income piece. And I was like, the income piece was happening anyway, but it was like, what is it that I need to earn to support the family and support our dreams? sort of thing. And I had to sort of go through a bit of a process with that. And Tim Ferriss's Dreamline goals, where you like have mini retirements through the year, it's kind of where I put it in place of like, it sort of sat in there and was like, that makes so much sense. Where you figure out your expenses, figure out the goals you want. Like you want a car, you want gym stuff, you want to go to a gym, put all those things in there, and where you want to go on holidays, put it all in there, and it spits out like a daily dollar figure. You got to make this much per day. And it gave me a target based off where we are now and what we want to do holiday-wise. And it wasn't that big. Admittedly, Kat is a sugar mum. She has a really good job. She earns pretty good money for the job she does because she does a good job. So it took the pressure off me having to try and figure it out. But the best thing it did for me was that it made me realize that I can create the space to be present with the kids, which I could see I didn't have to join a race I didn't want to be in. And I can still do things that I wanted to do and that I know I'm pretty good at, or I can help people work through and solve problems. So, and it was around this time as I was unpacking all this stuff where Theo's autistic like behaviors started flaring up. Like we haven't got them assessed yet. We're going down that path, but everything's just pointing to that direction. Everything that everyone's telling us, the therapist, all that kind of stuff is like, this is probably where it's going to end up. Well, not end up, but this is probably what it is. And it's kind of like, it's not to sound woo-woo-y, it's almost like right time, right moment, where I shut the down to create space to actually see what the hell's going on in my life, in the family's life, and then actually have the space to see what Theo was going through so we could pick up on it. And now everything's about creating the space to support him and to support Ruby. So it's literally everything is lining up to be around that. And this is where this podcast, what I'm trying to move to, this 100 club thing, it's all around that. It's like, it's really hard to see when there's so much going on. And we've talked about it, like the safety behaviors thing, where the stuff that comes up during boredom is that probably the stuff we need to let come up because there's something it's our gut telling us. And I was pushing it down for ages by just keeping really, really busy. And I pushed it down with alcohol back in the day. And then finding that space allowed that stuff to come up and sort of made me see the direction, not see the direction, but give me a bit of a compass, like where I want to go. And that's kind of where everything has kind of fallen into place now, where all this stuff, literally the last 18 months, things are just completely changed in the sense of like things have just sort of sat into where they needed to be, if that makes sense, without me forcing it. Flow like, yeah, like finding, like us connecting like this, like having these deep conversations on the call. It just kind of happened. Because I remember when we were talking with each other about you coming into James's program, you were on the fence for ages and we will bounce back and forth all the time. And I was super transparent. You were super transparent. There was no pressure. And eventually you came in. And now we catch up every week, twice a week, podcast and a coaching call. Yeah.
Right.
And then we have like good deep convos about really super interesting stuff, which I really enjoy. And then finding Kings, which you're probably going to come into as well, which is like another group of guys, men who are just, I shared it this morning in a post. It's like literally the baggage in the backpack that we carry around all the time. It's a place where we can drop it down and let it go. And we're not putting it on anyone else. We just put it into this circle inside King's Crew. And we all look at it and like, we don't need that shit anymore. And we can walk off and go do something else with more capacity, with feeling lighter. And it's sort of opened up this thing where this is kind of what I want to do, where it's like, yeah, helping parents try and get into that same space where the courage to create the space and capacity to, feel good, look good, that whole stuff, like the stuff we teach, fitness and health. Yes, feel good, look good. Like that is a big thing. I kind of dismissed it for a while, but it is actually like, it's almost like the gatekeeping thing. You get that, and then everything else kind of opens up. And then, but that hell yeah fitness, never second guess yourself. And then those connection points, relationship with yourself, which I think is kind of first, which is what I didn't have. And then relationship with your partner, and then relationship with your kids. And then the last one is probably the relationship with the tribe, which is friends and external family. And
Beautiful,
that's
man.
kind of where I'm working towards. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's taken a long time to figure it out, but yeah.
Yeah, it's what the world needs, and you know, that whole, like, let's help who we were maybe 5 years ago. I just hear in everything that you shared was this go go go, and this need to push and push, and I think it's super cool that we both connected, because throughout your experiences, you're just trying to help parents see the time and time again what happened to you when you were pushing for, you know, towards and all these, I don't want to say the wrong things, because I want to be mindful that not everybody needs to stop what they're doing and you know, and just like, you know, like they've got, you know, financial obligations and things like that. But like you had said, is there is what I'm also trying to teach parents is, no matter where you are in your life and no matter how busy you think you are, there is time to create space for yourself to see these things. And I imagine like that's a big part of how you're coaching too, is like, I just want to show you the space, even if it's 5 minutes a day, like you had mentioned, that let's open up our eyes to, you know, to this race that we're in. And is it the race that we want to run? Is it the race that we want to even be in? Are we in the wrong race? Like, should we be, you know, on the other side of the country running a different race or something? Who knows? You know, it's, I think that's really cool. And, yeah, I appreciate you sharing your story, man. And,
no, it's cool. And it's kind of like there was an analogy to Sue. I mentioned before the call that I caught up with Sue. We did a space holding session, guidance session with each other. And something come up for me where it was like, a lot of parents I talk to, dads especially, it's like you're stuck in a room. It's really, really dark. You can't really see anything. There's sharp objects everywhere. You're tripping over shit. Like you're in survival mode. And a lot of it, like the Busy Dad Squad originally was like getting him to a door where it opens up and you come into a room which is brighter and you can see more things and there's more options. But I felt like they kind of stayed at the door. And what I want to see, and the whole idea of this podcast, is to come through that door into this new room, which is like bright, shiny, so much more stuff, so much more like available to you once you get rid of that survival mode and get back into alignment. And then it just opens up into so many more options. And I think that when I said that to Sue, she's like, that's a good, like a way to visualize it. Like just get out of that dark, murky survival room, get back into where we want to be, which is this really, really fun space where you have, again, capacity, space, all that kind of stuff to go say hell yes to a lot of things that lights you up. So
beautiful,
that was
man.
Really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing. And if anybody listening like feels, you know, like they're walking around that dark room and just stepping on sharp objects, and you know, you're running with that analogy, like if you feel like that's you know, Chris and I are here, and Chris, if you just want to share where, you know, they can find you, and you know, you talked about, you know, about your coaching style and stuff, but let them know where they can find you and how they can connect with you and find that bright room.
Yeah, I'm on all the things, but the main one I post on is on Instagram on the Not So Busy Dad Lifestyle. It's a terrible name. I'm probably going to change that.
It'll be in the show notes.
Yeah, it'll be in the show notes. Also, Chris Forrest on most socials. I'm on Twitter, but it will be all in the show notes. So, and same with Todd's links as well. And like we said, we just like having chats.
Yeah.
Reach out, send us messages. And if you find something, if you get something out of these podcasts, let us know, because a few people reached out to Todd about Todd's episode and what they got out of it, and people I've never talked to before, which was really, really cool. So it's really, even though this is just more about us connecting with each other and connecting with other people on the episodes and just having those conversations, it is cool to see that it's helping people. So yeah, love the feedback.
Yeah, and don't forget to, subscribe, like, follow, whatever you can do on these podcast places. Yes. Yeah, I kind of feel like a big time podcaster now. But no, it, like, as much as, when you learn the back end of things and you understand like how this stuff actually works, like it, I don't think, we're not looking, we're looking to be able to have more conversations, and the more that we can see that your feedback, that you like this and comment on it or subscribe, then, we know that we're helping someone, and, that's landing. So don't forget to do that.
Yeah, well done. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.